talked to the members of the delegation, and they were not happy, and they still say the city was in denial mode and they were not ready to listen us properly, and still they were opposing that. So what's your take on that? Then whosoever was opposing this, so they will be asking that question to the city or your staff or to you. So then on what grounds you guys have this just made that change on that quick note?
In the past, there was no requirement for insurance.
Okay.
And now we're saying you have to have insurance. Property owners must submit proof of insurance coverage for their rental properties. And that's a basic thing. That's like... Some of these landlords are already operating and have like a corporate ownership. Some of them don't have a corporate number. Some of them are registered as corporations. Some of them are not. Brampton, records of complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint, because those are the ones that we are going to be knocking on the door and asking for, making sure that they have a license, making sure they meet the requirements. Like those are the ones that are going to have the big...
So do you have any one point why city is bringing this program?
Yeah, thousands upon thousands of residents.
Just one.
Just one.
Okay, so thousands upon thousands of residents, particularly in the properties that are being rented out.
I got the point. So my question is, now at this moment, city of Brampton, don't you have enough bylaws to deal with the property standards?
Program Harjinder Gill show, and as mentioned in the previous segment, Rowena Santos, Regional Councillor from Ward 1 and 5. She's with us in studio one more time. So Rowena, once again, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for coming again. I remember last interview, it was a little roller coasting ride.
That's okay.
And today we have some new announcements because after our last interview, city has made some changes in the program, and we are interested to know more about those changes. Especially, I think I know city is already committed and the city is already aware, and you all are councillors are ready to go as per the programs. But still, many Bramptonians are there. They wanted to know more about the changes. What are the changes now, and how those changes are going to affect their life?
So we're very pleased, Harjinder, to announce that during the pause of the RRL in January and in February, and getting feedback from not just the various landlords who opposed the program, but also from residents in their neighborhoods and even from tenants. We got a lot of feedback over the pause.
Right.
And as promised, we took that feedback and created a more streamlined pilot program.
Right.
And the pause of the pilot program was lifted as of March the 28th. And so landlords who have residential properties being rented out can now apply for the license based on the new changes that we've done to the program. And so I'll read some of these changes and also share with you how easy.
I think we will go one by one, because I know there are almost 5-10 different points.
Changes, yeah.
We can just address them one by one.
For sure.
So if you just wanted to highlight all of them first, and then we will elaborate that.
So some of the changes are, for example, number one, proof of ownership.
Okay.
So a lot of landlords had shared that, why do I have to submit extra documentation that I own the property? Can't you already tell from the property taxes? I already pay property taxes. So the proof of ownership,
Right.
property owners are no longer required to submit proof of ownership. So they don't need to submit that anymore. We've removed that requirement.
Right. So in terms of ownership, why did that point was there previously? Any specific reason, and what was the main reason it's removed?
So in the past, you had to provide some sort of proof of ownership, whether that was your income tax bill or something else. But if
so what was the reason behind putting that point last time?
I think it's because staff wanted, they suggested that we put everything in terms of all requirements. And what they were also following was, quite frankly, a similar process and protocol for other business licenses. Right. And in fact, when we got briefed, when the Residential Rental Licensing Task Force together with the mayor got briefed on the latest changes, the city staff, the clerk's office told us that the landlord licensing pilot program is so easy and simple that it's more easy and simple than other licensing program in the city.
Okay.
So all the other businesses, like restaurants that we've talked about in the past, or even, any retail businesses, the license to become a licensed landlord, it's even easier than owning any other business in the city. So proof of ownership was one of the requirements we let go, because when you own a property, you have to pay property taxes, right?
Right.
So the city has a record of who is paying the property taxes.
Right.
And if
so
the
indirectly
license...
that's there.
Yeah. So if the license matches, the license of the person who's the landlord matches the property tax bill, then we're good.
Okay.
So it's a simple back-end adjustment in terms of proof of ownership. So you no longer need to submit that.
Right. So then whosoever was opposing this, so they will be asking that question to the city or your staff or to you. So then on what grounds you guys have just made that change on that quick note?
So I think the task force, particularly myself, Councillor Keenan, Councillor Power, and the mayor, we really took a look at what paperwork is absolutely necessary that doesn't exist in the records of the city, that we can't find ourselves.
Okay.
So, one way to do that, of course, in the previous iteration of the RRL, was that the landlord had to provide everything, had to provide, the permits, the plans, the ownership, had to provide everything. When in fact, to the point of the landlords, if you are already registered with a unit, registered with the city, some of that information we already have.
Right.
And so instead of getting the landlord through the licensing to resubmit everything, what we're doing in the background is actually finding the information within our own databases in order to match the license.
Okay. And the next point is about corporate ownership. So
yes.
Can we go for that?
Yeah. So I brought this up because one of the, I think either on your show or on social media, somebody said, well, some of these landlords are already operating and have like a corporate ownership. Some of them don't have a corporate number. Some of them are registered as corporations. Some of them are not. Right. If you're already registered as a corporation, then there's also information that exists for you that the city has access to.
Right.
So if you already are operating as a business, as a corporation and registered as a business, then you are already being regulated as a business, as a corporation. So if you are already registered as a corporation and you have various properties through that corporation that you're renting, you are already being regulated through as being a corporation.
Right. And the next point is about it's about the criminal record check.
Yes.
So now we don't need to provide that?
That was one of the first things that we eliminated.
It was already eliminated last time, actually.
Even before this recent change, that was already no longer a requirement.
Okay. So do you think that's is there any drawback by removing this point, or do you see this is good? We can deal with this program without this option.
I think that it's a good removal because really the city of Brampton is trying to uphold property standards, health standards, and safety standards with respect to the property. So
do you see any danger for the tenants in some specific cases?
I don't think so. So even if a landlord has a criminal record, there's nothing the city can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the only thing that the city can do is actually, again, enforce property standards, health standards, building code standards, fire code standards, safety standards. That is what is within our jurisdiction. Whether or not a landlord has a criminal record shouldn't impact whether or not they have a license, because even if they did, we have no jurisdiction. We're not the police. We're not the provincial government. We're not the federal government. We are the municipal government at the City of Brampton in charge of property standards, health, and safety standards as it relates to the property.
Just the discussion's sake, what about the tenant's criminal record check? So do we need to
No. So tenants don't need a criminal record check. No.
Okay.
Now, if the landlord wants to do a criminal record check, that would be smart.
Yeah, but that's not required by this program. So
not by the city, no. Yeah. But the landlord, my advice to landlords is absolutely check on your tenants and make sure that they're good tenants.
Because, I was asking this question because on one point, landlords would be interested to know something where, or they wanted to have something on the program where they can protect themselves in terms of a criminal check, or especially in terms of the question will come again in terms of the rent, because most of the time tenants are there and landlords are worried about their rent. So whether they can get the rent for 1 or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, and after that, if tenant is not paying the rent. So that's the biggest concern for the landlords. So is there anything specific?
So again, the residential rental licensing program, or the City of Brampton, we have no jurisdiction between the relationship between the landlord and the tenant.
Right.
The landlord, it's in their best interest to find out everything they can possibly find out about the people that are going to rent out their units. Find out if they have a job. Find out if they can pay rent. Find out if they're responsible. Find out, get all the details before actually signing the lease and allowing them to rent their property. Okay. So if there are issues related to the landlord or the tenant not actually paying rent, that goes to the landlord-tenant tribunal with the province, which we are advocating for more resources so that we can deal with the backlog of cases. But really, it's the business owner, the landlord's job to make sure that they have good customers, that they have good paying customers. They need to make sure that the people they're renting their property to are good tenants.
And the next point is, now we don't need to put or submit the floor plans?
Yep. So no floor plans are needed now, especially if you're a registered unit, because those floor plans, if you're you already have a registered unit, would have been submitted before. And in fact, the only time that we will ask folks to resubmit any floor plans is if there are complaints and then there's an inspection and there have been changes that have been made to the original floor plan. So clearly, if you've made changes from your original floor plans, then we need to see.
So what was the reason why that point was there?
So I think, again, what staff did originally in January when the program was launched was they put everything in. They put all the requirements in instead of taking a look at what information we already have. Right. And making it easier for people to get a license. So we've eliminated a lot of the redundancy in the paperwork and in the plans, and have really streamlined it to make it easy. Okay, and the same thing is for electrical inspection and gas inspection. So can we elaborate that point? Same thing. So if you have a registered unit with the City of Brampton, and this goes back to making it easier, particularly for what the opposing landlords call legal units. So if you have a registered unit and it's a legal unit, you have already gone through the process of submitting your electrical inspection, your gas inspection. Okay. And so we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that everything is up to code. And will it be safe for everybody, or do you see any? I think, if the landlord signs off and says that no changes, up to code, submitted all my inspections and stuff, then we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and trust that things are up to code. Now, if there's a complaint and if there are issues, and upon an inspection of the property, if the inspection finds out that they've violated a bunch of things, at that point in time is when we need them to do another inspection. So these points were removed just because of the people were opposing it, or there were any other logical reasons? No, it's not because they were bringing up a good point. So a lot of the landlords who said that they had legal units, registered units, said, how come you don't trust us? We already submitted this information. What
So
makes
how
you
about
think-
whose basements and the properties are not legally signed?
Yeah. So again, this goes back to those properties that have the most number of complaints, right? So there are
So
some.
is it safe to remove from those kind of properties?
We're
too?
not removing it because if you are operating illegally and your unit is not yet registered with the city of Brampton,
Right.
then you haven't submitted any of that paperwork.
Okay.
And so based on an inspection,
So then
you
city will request to see those papers
Yes.
for the
Correct.
illegal basements or
Correct.
illegal properties.
Correct, because when we
So they
knock
wanted to
on-
make sure that property is safe
Yes.
to lend.
Yes,
to rent,
because
actually.
here's the thing: in order to get your license, you actually have to have a registered unit. Those are the bare basics of getting your license.
Okay.
Now, if there are complaints to your property, so if you lie on your license and you say I have a registered unit, and then we check our records at the city of Brampton and it says this property is not a registered unit,
Right.
we will send an inspector and say,
Okay.
you see what I'm saying? There are ways for us to catch some of these loopholes.
And I see next point is parking as storage plan. So what are
Yeah.
the changes for that point?
Yeah, so in terms of the parking and storage plan, you're no longer required to submit that because, again, this is complaint driven. So those properties that have numerous complaints over and over and over again related to illegal parking or related to anything that's related to overflowing storage, we will find those properties and require inspections. So again, if you're a legal landlord and you're following the rules, you have no complaints to your property, then get your license. You can now get it for free during the pilot if you get your license before the end of June. For the entire duration of the pilot, get your license and just follow the rules.
Right.
Right? And if you follow the rules, no complaints issued to your property, no inspections, no issues.
Okay. So, friends, this is Harjinder Gill show and Rowena Santos, the regional councillor from wards 1 and 5. She's with us. And today we are discussing the major changes in RRL program, which is pilot program. So, Rowena, can you just repeat the wards again where this pilot program will get in effect?
Yep. So it's impacting in the areas of wards 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. And these areas have the highest concentration of complaints issued to various rental properties versus all of Brampton. And the reason why it's piloted specifically in those areas is so that we could learn from this process again before we roll it out to the rest of the city.
So, friends, if you have any questions in terms of the changes that Rowena was explaining today, or before we go to the fee or application process, so we may take a couple of calls at 905-601-1350. That's our studio number. She will be with us for next 10-15 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can call and just be brief and be polite, actually, be respectful. I know there are some friends out there, folks out there, they are not comfortable or still they are opposing the program. So I think now the city has already made their decision and it's already in there. So Rowena, still, is there any other options or ways if anybody wants to oppose or if anybody wants to request the city to make some more changes, or it's a final?
They can continue to send their feedback, through email. We're still listening because it's a pilot program. We're still learning through this process.
Right.
There are two other points, Harjinder, I just wanted to share as well. So there's also a property owner authorization and declaration form that says that property owners authorize the application and declare their commitment to program compliance. So every year when they renew, including this year when they get their license, they will have to sign a form that says that they are committed to be compliant with all the rules and regulations. And then the other important piece is the insurance declaration form.
Okay.
And so we have found that many illegal rental units don't have insurance. And so now this is a requirement, and this is what's different from registration. So even if you were what's called a legal landlord or have registered units, in the past there was no requirement for insurance.
Okay.
And now we're saying you have to have insurance. Property owners must submit proof of insurance coverage for their rental properties. And that's a basic thing. That's like, you should have insurance for your property, especially if you're renting it out.
Right. Actually, we'll go to the application process one more time. Before that, I think this is 350, and if anybody is interested, I again request, if you have any questions, you can call, and we can discuss those points with Rowena today. Or as she mentioned, still you have the right to submit your complaints, or you can just write an email to all the council members or to the city. Rowena, before we discuss the fee and application process, what was the experience in the last meeting? Especially there was a delegation, and still I talked to the members of the delegation, and they were not happy, and they still say the city was in denial mode and they were not ready to listen to us properly, and still they were opposing that. So what's your take on that?
So I think that when you take a look at the significant changes and reduction of duplication, and making it even easier to get your landlord license versus getting a license at a restaurant, we have listened. So, we've listened, we've taken the feedback, we've made it easier, we've waived the fee, we're focusing on non-compliance, and we've listened. Now, the one thing that we haven't listened to, and I'll be transparent, is shutting it down. Like, we are not shutting down the program. And I think some of those landlords who continue to protest just simply want us to shut it down. That is not something we're going to do. And the reason why we're not going to do that is, again, there are thousands of residents who have been negatively impacted by many of these non-compliant landlords who are not taking care of their property, who are creating unsafe living conditions for the people who live there, and are disrespecting the neighbors that are within the actual area itself. And so we are not shutting down the program, but have we listened? Yes, we've listened. You can see all of the changes that we have made to make it easier for landlords who are compliant to actually get their license and be okay. And for the most part, that's the majority of landlords out there.
Right. So now let's go to the fee portion. So how about the fee? And will there be any changes in that segment, or it's still the same?
There has been a change. So in the past, we were only going to waive the $300 fee for the first year if folks got their license before the end of June. And the change is now, if you get your license before the end of June, we will waive the fee for the entire pilot program, for the entire time that the program's being piloted.
So now we have June 30th. That's the last date.
Yeah. So if you get your license before that date, you don't have to pay a renewal fee. So we're going to waive it for the whole pilot program. Now, the only time that you will get charged for the fee,
right,
a renewal fee in particular, is if there are complaints on your property. So if there are complaints on your property and there are fines on your property, you violated the rules, you didn't keep your commitment that you signed off, then we're going to charge you a renewal fee for the license.
Right. So as per city's assessment, who's going to get the maximum benefit of this program?
I think that the people who will get the maximum benefit for the program are actually going to be the residents in the surrounding neighborhoods, as well as the tenants who are there, because now they're going to have safer living conditions. They're also going to understand the rules. So one of the other things that we've done is we've listened to many of the residents, we've listened to the landlords. We now have developed a property standards and safety information package. And in that package, it's going to be a guide that outlines all of the standards and safety measures that are expected for rental properties. So landlords cannot say, I didn't know. I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that. We're going to actually provide that in the license. So landlords are now going to be even more educated through this licensing process of what the rules are. The other thing is that the emergency information tenant sheet. So tenants will receive essential emergency contact information to ensure their safety and well-being. So the tenants in the property themselves will also be through the licensing program, get information in order to make sure that they understand their safety rights as well.
So can we just repeat that part how to submit the application now? So that's the only so the only option to submit the application is online, or people can go in physical applications as well, or just the online
you could do both.
Okay.
It's easier to do it online, quite frankly, but you could come in person as well.
So where to come for in-person applications?
To the clerk's office, like any other business license. You could go to City Hall, and in the foyer of the City Hall, there's the city clerk's office.
Okay.
And they can take.
So will there be somebody who can help because I think it'll take some time. So before we submit so is there any process, and is there anybody who's going to review the application before the submitting?
Yeah. So the clerk's office will be in charge of reviewing the various license applications like any other business license. And because the process to get your landlord license is so much more simpler than any other business license out there in the city of Brampton, that's what they told us. It's easier than any other business license out there in Brampton to actually get. So if you go to City Hall, you need the extra help to fill it out. The clerk's office there is to support, or you could submit it online.
So as I remember last time when we were talking about the limitations, some landlords will be concerned about whether they should disclose some of their like there must be some flaws in their properties, or there must be something which is they don't want to disclose to the city. So what about those kind of situations? So whether they are registering or whether they are not registering, or how to deal with that. I hope city will, because nobody wants to get penalties, right? In case if there is nothing, if there is not anything as per the rules or regulations. So right now they were just living as it is, but they were not registering it anywhere. Now they are going to register that property with the city, and they are worried about those flaws or those limitations or those points where they can get penalized. So what to do with that?
Yeah, so that's the landlord's choice, really. Like,
I hope you got my point. So people will be worried about that, whether they should register that or not.
Yeah, and so my response to that is the city of Brampton has a responsibility to uphold building code, fire code, property standards.
I know it wasn't an ideal question.
I know,
but it was a practical question. It was a practical question.
And I get that practical question, but that is our duty, is to have safe places for people to live, particularly in residential housing, especially. And if you are a landlord and you don't have any complaints on your property, quite frankly, there isn't that much to worry about.
Right.
I think the ones to worry about are the ones that we have at the City of Brampton, records of complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint, because those are the ones that we are going to be knocking on the door and asking for, making sure that they have a license, making sure they meet the requirements. Like, those are the ones that are going to have the biggest issues.
All right. So we have one caller, Mr. Hazara Singh. So probably he wants to discuss something. Hazara Singh, you are on air.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having this call-in show. Thank you for having this information session. I have a simple question. My question is twofold. First question, City of Brampton. What is the one? Can you point out one problem City of Brampton wants to deal with this by bringing RRL?
So do you have any one point why city is bringing this program?
Yeah, thousands upon thousands of residents.
Just one.
Just one.
Okay, so thousands upon thousands of residents, particularly in these areas being piloted, for many years have been complaining about landlords who would neglect their property. So the biggest reason for the inspiration behind licensing landlords was the thousands upon thousands of complaints related to violations of property standards, health and safety standards of many of these residential properties that are being rented out.
I got the point. So my question is, now, at this moment, City of Brampton, don't you have enough bylaws to deal with the property standards?
And thank you for that question. And so for many, many years, we have been